store for you this afternoon. Thank you. Tiffany?
Thank you, Audrey. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you today. And I'm just going to pick up where Audrey left off. If you could go to the next slide, please. We did have one more large public meeting in the winter of 2020 before COVID hit. Then we had to pivot like everybody else in this community, and we went online. So our committees moved online and began meeting there. So we still had research meeting, soil and marker, pilgrimage, and the education and programming committees meeting online. Next slide. We also held events on one more ahead. Yeah, two more ahead. We also held online events that allowed us to have multiple speakers come and help educate the community as well as engage in discussions. It was a lot of opportunities to talk about Alexandria's history and to talk about race and justice issues. Next slide. Audrey sort of stole my content for this slide, but we do have a newsletter, and on if you go to our website, this is a screenshot of the website. If you hit that big blue button, you will be signing up for the newsletter. It'll come directly to your box. However, you can also, underneath there, you see all of the issues for each year. If you pick one of those and draw down, you can read every single issue we have published so far. And each one has a special feature section, and we take a deeper dive into the history of the lynchings, as well as what was happening in Alexandria around that time. We also look at other aspects of African-American history that so to date, we really haven't had an opportunity to explore. And we also look at some of the achievements of the African-American community in the newsletter. There are listed in each newsletter whatever the upcoming events are, and also the meetings of the committees when those are going to happen. And everybody's invited. You don't have to, you can just show up for the next meeting and join a committee. And we really hope that we want to encourage everybody to join us in this journey. Next slide. On April 23rd, 2020, ACRP held a McCoy Remembrance online. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, and it happened so soon after everything shut down, we had to do everything completely online. So we created an in memoriam section, which we continue to keep online to this day and add to it each year during the remembrances. And there's always a wealth of information and also just beautiful. There's poetry, and it's a really nice section of our website. I encourage you to check those out too. By August, when Thomas was lynched, ACRP was able to hold a very small taped event. At that event, the mayor and the chief of police apologized for their counterparts' roles in the lynching of Thomas. Next slide. In 2021, on the anniversary of each man's lynching, the historic markers that the Soil and Marker Committee wrote with the information that the research committee had developed on the lynchings were unveiled at each lynching site. The next goal of the Soil and Marker Committee is to place a state EJI marker that recognizes the lynchings in Alexandria. They'll be working on that this year. Next slide. This is actually a slide depicting that remembrance I just mentioned during the pandemic for Benjamin Thomas. Next slide. This past year in 2022, we were able to hold two large in-person remembrances on the anniversaries of McCoy and Thomas lynchings, and both were very special events. If you were there, we appreciate that. If you weren't, you can view them online. We keep all of that information on the website. And if you could go to the next slide, please. On September 24th, we held a soil collection ceremony. Now, this is part of EJI's Remembrance Program. This is one of the things they do ask every community to engage in, to hold a soil collection ceremony to memorialize the lives of both men. The soil was collected from sites around the city that was important to the lives of each man, such as where he grew up, where he worked, if he worked. Also, we included the prison and the police station. We also collected soil related to the story of African Americans in Alexandria. We then combined each man's soil separately with that history, that soil from the history of the African Americans in Alexandria. And if you can see in this picture in the bottom, we asked our middle school students at Jefferson Houston to come up with a way to hold the soil. And they created these wooden vessels with plexiglass sides. And in the center, you see the soil. And this is Joseph McCoy's. Each man had his own. And then in the side compartment are the jars. And on the side, you see Benjamin Thomas's jar. These are jars that EJI gives each community to fill with the soil. And these are on display at EJI once you take them down there or once they collect them. So since we started the whole project, we have been trying to locate and contact descendants for both men. In this upper picture, you can see McCoy's descendants. We were so fortunate that the descendants of McCoy joined us for the soil collection ceremony. And then the public at this event was invited to come and scoop some of that soil into the EJI jars, and that is how we filled them. Next slide, please. Less than 2 weeks later, we boarded buses and took the soil to EJI to hand it over in a special ceremony. And this is a little bit different. Other communities haven't done it this way. We're the first community to take the soil down as part of our pilgrimage and then hold a ceremony at EJI to deliver that soil. And I want to just say that we put the invitation out to the entire city to join us, and we ended up having 165 people on our journey to Alabama. And among those were 47 people from the high school. We had 31 students and then staff and our superintendent and some school board members who joined us as well. If you could go to the next slide. I want to talk about the ACRP essay contest. While they have to prep up, we have a nice little pilgrimage video to share with you the story of our pilgrimage. And while they cue that up, I'm going to tell you about the EJI essay contest. We launched this on Martin Luther King Day at the high school. This is for our public school students in Alexandria. So it's at Alexandria City High School. And students are invited to submit essays on a racial justice question that EJI has asked. The essays are around 800 to 1,000 words, and they have an opportunity to win a scholarship and prizes from EJI. They're going to close this scholarship contest on March 17th. And on March 20th, we're going to hold an awards ceremony. And I really hope that the community will join us in celebrating our students at this award ceremony. And I think that we might be queued up for the video, but I want to let you know that once we view it, we have our two special guest speakers who attended the pilgrimage, who are going to share their experiences with you. We have Miss Rosa Bird and Mr. Darley Kambuda. I'll tell you a little bit more about them after the pilgrimage video.
Sorry about that. Let me see what stopped it. There.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the video. I would like to introduce you to Miss Rosa Bird, who is the chair of the Alexandria MLK Memorial Planning Committee, and she is also a living legend. So you may already know of her. She came on the pilgrimage with us, and we are looking forward to hearing from her.
Hello, thank you, Tiffany.
Sure.
I enjoyed watching that program again, but when I went on this pilgrimage, I was really excited. I'm looking at it and reliving it today. It still gets to me, and I tear up a little bit. But everything that we saw down in Selma was great. I have a problem with my knees. I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to walk across the Pettus Bridge. Because of that, I want to start out by saying I was the third person. They let the people with problems go first, and I was the third person to cross that bridge. I've been wanting to do that for years. But what I liked and what I got from that trip more, it ended with, we went on a pilgrimage, we came back with relationships. While we were facing that 15-hour bus ride, there were lots of people talking about that. But I came away from that trip with so many new relationships with people. We watched civil rights movies. We sniffed and cried sometimes, but then we got out and everyone was, why did you want to come? We were sharing our thoughts while we went on this trip. That I can't put it on the screen, but that was my greatest gift from that trip. And I've been looking forward to going on another one if we were to have one. I looked up and I imagined myself being with the Greyhound on the Greyhound bus boycotts with the people back in the day and what they went through and how at this point we were sort of going in their same tracks, but we didn't have to be afraid. We could talk about what was happening on this trip. We weren't end up flying in all comfort like some people, but everything that I absorbed from that trip is still with me and will be with me forever. I did make a couple of notes, so I have to just pause and look. I thought about the age of the people on that bus. We were sort of like the riders from before, 18 to, I was 79, so I was one of the older people on the bus. But everyone had an idea to share with each other. When I was on the trip, I did a lot of networking for our last Martin Luther King Jr. Program that was coming up. I had lots of volunteers for our program from that trip and that we made to Selma. Another thing that that made me really happy was just learning more about Brian Stevenson and the Just Mercy. I had watched the TV. One of the young people that went on the trip is a relative of my family. She was walking along. She told me she recognized her family's surname on one of the pillars, and her father informed her that yes, they did indeed come from that part of the state where their pillar was shown. I want to talk to you about a lot of these things, but I don't talk a lot. But I wanted to share those three things that's still living with me. If we ever get a chance to go on this and whatever we can do on these type of pilgrimage, it is well worthwhile going. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Rosa. And now I'd like to introduce Darley Kamuda, who is one of the amazing students who joined us on our trip. He is a senior this year at Alexandria City High School.
Thank you for the introduction, Tiffany. I just want to say thank you for having me today. And I'm here as a mayoral representative, for all of my people back in Alexandria City. And I mainly just want to give a rundown of how I felt during the trip and to be honest, I can't even really express myself with like an emotion solely because there was a lot of things going on in my head at the time because in Alabama and all the museums that we went to, like the EGI, excuse me, like the EGI and you know, the just the whole civil rights just movement that was going on. We just didn't know how to express ourselves because there was no filter on anything. They just gave it to us straight. And, you know, and I believe that was the whole idea of just the trip it's in itself, because they wanted to teach us, you know, how we have to face reality and how we have to confront our past in order to make a brighter future, just like, you know, and I feel as though it's difficult confronting the past in a way where we have to live in a society where we're not told the past, you know, from birth to, you know, however old we are now, because in our school system, and I like to bring this up very often, they don't teach us this. They do not tell us anything regardless of it. We could study African Americans for like what, a week, maybe even a couple of days if we're lucky, and then after that, it's on to the next unit. However, there's a complexity to it, and it's a very important subject that we actually need to dive deep into and debunk because of how much, or excuse me, what was going on and how much of it was happening. And that's why I'd like to like just say that this trip was a monumental discovery for me, because I personally found a lot of things that I thought was just crazy to me at the time, and I had like lots of emotions going through my head. I have friends coming over me asking me if I'm good, am I okay? And you know, like I said, there was no words that I could give to express that. But I can't necessarily say it was joy because I'm finding out this information, but I can't necessarily say I'm sad because I'm hearing this information. And that's the reality of the situation. However, I'm so thankful that I went on this trip because I now see the circumstances of where I stand and how, or what I can do to improve not only myself, but society. And my friends feel the same way. And, you know, we had these community circles to talk about, you know, while we were at the pilgrimage, talking about, you know, what was going through our heads, how do we feel? And I feel like those really like brought us together. Like Miss Rosa said, we all came together, we built relationships based on the trip in itself. And there's nothing that I can really, you know, say. It's because like, again, there's a lot of emotion. It's, you know, it was just a really fantastic trip. I'd love to do it again. Thank you again, Alexandria City Remembrance Project. Like, you guys did a fantastic job bringing us kids to just learn and find who we really are and do what we can to better society. Can't thank you enough. Thank you for listening as well.
Thank you. And that concludes our presentation.
So thank you very much, all of the speakers and the surprise, to both speakers and the two surprise guests who we really enjoyed hearing from, the people, the other two who went on the pilgrimage. We have a few questions in the chat. If you would like to answer these. This one here may be aimed at Tiffany. Other than what has already been mentioned, what will be done in the future as part of the Alexandria Community Remembrance Project?
Oh, we have a lot of work still to do. This is just the beginning. So we are on March 4th, we're going to have a speaker at the Lee Center at 4 o'clock. We're going to be talking about transformational justice. And it's a concept that a lot of people refer to as restoration, or restorative justice. But what they really mean, because that's kind of a specific program in our legal system and our, as you all may know, and in our education system, what they're talking about is more about how do we, you know, make up for, I don't know the right words to use, historical wrongs and move forward together in a new community. Our ultimate goal is Martin Luther King's beloved community. So now we engage in the work. Some of it's going to be inner work, but we're going to support that with continuing to provide programs and more education and delving deeper into the history that has been untold and unshared in Alexandria and sharing that.
Tiffany, what was the date? Transformational Justice at the Lee Center? Was it?
Yeah, 4 p.m. on March 4th.
4 p.m. March 4th.
That is the same day as the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is part of the reason it hasn't been widely advertised yet, because we were, we tried to find a different time to do it, a different day. So we instead are doing it that day, but we have made the time after the parade and hoping that it won't, there won't be any traffic issues at that point.
Well, it's going to be a little lesson in moving around the parade.
Yeah.
We have a lot of practice in doing. There was another question, and that was, explain the Mothers of Gynecology exhibit that was shown in the video.
Oh, Michelle Browder. Actually, we are hoping to bring her here so that she will be able to tell you all about her exhibit as well. But we're still working on that with her. She is an artist and activist in Montgomery, Alabama, and she has created a park, I think is the best way to describe it, that displays her sculptures. The most famous being Mothers of Gynecology. She was very upset that the father of gynecology is honored on the State House lawn in Montgomery, because, she's upset because he did research on African-American women, and he did it without anesthesia, and he created problems that weren't there to solve problems that were problems for people who were sexually exploiting African-American women. So she created the 3 goddesses, and those are the statues, which are kind of a steampunk art of steel welded together, and they're absolutely amazing. The detail on them is incredible, and they tell the story of this. And she's gone further with some other displays that that tell that story more about what this doctor did and dishonor some of his honor.
Oh, thank you very much. That caught my eye too, that gynecological exhibit. And I had heard that about the about experiments not done without anesthesia. And the theory was that the African-American women had a greater tolerance for pain. So it was a terrible thing.
Yes.
Darlie, I have a question for you from Susan Burke. How did the pilgrimage affect your plans for the future?
Well, for starters, I had not thought about, like, I remember before in junior year, you know, you get this question about like, what colleges do you plan on applying to? And, you know, what do you plan on doing for the rest of your life? And, you know, that question really stuck with me. And, you know, year after, you know, I'm still kind of undecided back to this trip, this pilgrimage. You know, I really understand what I really should be doing. And that is trying to educate not only myself, but the people around me and even those, you know, younger than me. And I always had this thing for like, you know, trying to help out the youth and just, you know, hanging around with those younger than me, setting a good example for them. And, you know, and I in the future, I also want to be able to be that person who's like, hey, you should come to me because I know, you know, what's going on, and what you're doing isn't exactly the right thing that you should be doing. And just trying to educate those about the civil rights movement and how important the history was. And yeah, that kind of like changed the whole trajectory of what I originally planned to do, which was, you know, kind of just live my life in a way where I could have learned this. I could have learned this history when I was like maybe 25. If I'm being completely honest, I could have continued living my life without really understanding what really happened with the lynchings and, you know, slavery and just like the in-depth ideology of what was happening in like during the civil rights movement. And so, yeah, basically just changed the whole trajectory of where I wanted to go. But I know that I'm on the right track as of right now. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Darley.
Mhm.
Actually, your answer to the previous question generated another question to you.
Okay.
It's from Ra Alim Shabazz. Can you discuss the disconnect between what you learned in school about the legacy of racial terror and African-American history and what you just witnessed on the trip? How can schools do a better job of bridging that gap about this important history, in your opinion? So it's really two questions. So it's the disconnect first between what
Okay.
you
Okay.
and what they're not teaching you.
All right. So, well, I guess I could start off with this. What we learned in school was kind of just like, you know, African Americans had, you know, lived their lives, you know, enslaved, or not African Americans, sorry, Africans from West Africa was enslaved, and they were treated terribly. They were oppressed. They were dehumanized. End of story, right? And on this pilgrimage, we learned that there was more to it. And, you know, you hear this stuff on the news about schools not wanting to, you know, teach or have classes like African-American studies and, you know, AP African-American studies, all of that. And actually, the person who asked me this question, Mr. Shabazz, actually teaches African-American studies. He's actually my teacher. So I had a feeling, you know, he wanted me to talk about this. And I'm really glad he asked me that question, because I feel as though the disconnect between the two is that those in power don't want children to understand the truth because they believe that we could change history. That's what they're so scared of, because they believe that if we make a change, then society could possibly topple over. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion. I feel as though if kids had the power and they know the truth, then things could truly change around here. And we could start seeing a better future, like the whole goal of this project. And I'm really interested as to see, you know, how we go in terms of what we can do to keep African-American studies as a course. And not only that, how we can also branch that to other states and not just, you know, Virginia.
So that was your answer also to, I'll give you a second chance. How can schools do a better job of bridging that gap about this important history, in your opinion?
Yeah, and then to add on to that second part of the question, what schools can do is properly promote the courses, because some schools tend to not promote most of the courses given to at school. Like I remember when I was first going into freshman year, African-American studies was a course, but it wasn't on the list. Like we were given a Google form, but it wasn't on there. So I was confused when I was talking to my friend. He's like, I'm taking African-American studies. Why aren't you in here? And I'm like, that's a course? And it's just, it doesn't make any sense how I'm being left out from information that I could have known a long time ago. And again, I do believe that schools can do a better job by just putting more attention towards promoting the courses. I feel like that's very important, because if you don't promote something, then no one's going to know about it. If no one knows about it, then how can we educate people? That's like my standpoint in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a comment here. Let me see. From Chris Edwards. I grew up in the suburbs of Alexandria and lived in the city for a while. Mount Vernon High School was segregated through 1963 when I graduated. The racism was everywhere, though most whites were not from there and did not know local history. I don't think any of us knew there had been lynchings in the city. I belong to AAUW in Harrisonburg. Thank you so much for doing this program. So that's a comment that confirms what we're hearing. Let's see. Here we have a question from Susan Warner. Tiffany, does your project receive any pushback from those who have the crazy idea that history will make their children feel bad?
Well, I appreciate your question. We have not, there's nothing that's happened that I know of at this level, any kind of pushback. So everybody's been very welcoming of this program in Alexandria.
Okay, that's good to hear. And Susan Burke adds, just an idea. It would be wonderful if Darley and others who made the pilgrimage were available to speak to other students in the area. Very powerful presentation, Darley, and you're a great role model.
Thank you. If you don't mind me speaking, of course. Susan, thank you for your comment. I'm always available anytime if it's to talk to kids about the pilgrimage. Like, there's so many things that I could say that could really reach the heart of the students. And I'm sure my fellow classmates would do the same. Like, they're always, like, right now at our school, we're actually having our Black History Month event where we bring students from classes, teachers, RSVP, they come to the Black Box theater room, and, you know, we share information regarding, you know, Pan-Africanism and just like diaspora, African diaspora, and just making sure that, you know, people really know about what they can do to really engage with history, and just knowing what's going on and what they can do to actually better themselves and, you know, change the future. Yeah.
And if I could just tag on, the Remembrance students, which is how we've been referring to the students who went on the trip, have created a film. It started out, or we've been describing it as a documentary, but it's mixed with reflections. So as its own hybrid. And they have just shared it with their student body, and we don't have a date yet, but we are hoping to share that with the wider community. And that would be a great opportunity for other students also to learn about what our students experienced on this trip.
Wonderful.
There's another comment here from Susan Burke, and she suggests a team of Darley and Rosa speaking to students in Northern Virginia. Wow. And I've got to say, I was very impressed about your walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge when you had worried that you weren't going to make it. It was just wonderful. That was inspiring. Let's see. Okay. There's a request for sharing the link. Is that the link?
Yeah, the link to the students' film. I'm trying to find it right now.
Oh, I can actually grab it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great, darling.
Yeah, I got it up right here. I was watching it last night anyway.
You are more adept at this than
I can screen share it also very quickly. I can screen share it very quickly.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, where is it? There. There it is.
no. That is not what we're talking
Oh, that's
about.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Then I will immediately exit it.
Yeah. No. If he can just drop it in the chat. It is a link that goes directly to the students' film that they created.
There. Yes.
Yes.
I have a question, which may be a dumb question because probably everybody knows the answer to this, but maybe I just wanted to hear it again. And that is, you said that the ultimate goal is Martin Luther King's beloved community. can, Rosa, you're nodding. Could you maybe define that for me? What is meant by that?
We just completed our 50th anniversary. There's a collaboration between our committee, which is a citizens committee, and the city of Alexandria. And it's been 50 years that we've worked together on each Martin Luther King program. This past year, I can't even talk about that either. It went beyond our wildest dreams, and I prayed that we would have a program worthy of Dr. King and the city's 50th anniversary. It was at the Masonic Temple. I understand that the temple has 375 seats or something, but we had to put chairs in the aisle because we wanted to reach out. This, and in part, it came from this pilgrimage that we went on. There's so many people. For many years, our program has been mainly held at Black churches, very few white churches, and the main of our audience has been African Americans coming to honor Dr. King. And I just felt that everyone needed to know. The people from the pilgrimage also got their friends to help us with the program. They got involved with the program. And I cried through the first 3 verses of Lift Every Voice and Sing, because it was just wonderful. The program itself, the people that came, and it was really just love between the people in that building. I have one belief that a lot of people might not believe. I think America is a good country, and I think a lot of us are more together than the newspaper and the TV shows would allow you to believe. I have something I'll call Friends of Roses. And I tell you, the Masonic Temple was running over with people that I call Friends of Roses, not because I know them, but because they believe in our America. Things are bad, our children are having problems, but we, the people that on this chat, the people that were at our meeting, this is my America, and we have to spread it with young people like Daryl is talking about. Let's get this message out there to them and see what we can do together to change this attitude that we don't get along and everybody is against everybody. That's almost like giving the people with the negative attitude all of the attention and just ignoring us.
Would you say then that this meeting at the Masonic Temple really symbolized
Yes, the
concept
beloved, yes,
of the
the
beloved?
beloved Alexandria. That was part of our theme too. Alexandria strives to become the beloved community.
So Martin Luther King's idea would be to bring people together in that
Yes,
sense, which you witnessed as
yes.
and you're attributing it to
Mhm.
the powerful impact of the pilgrimage. If I
Yeah, part of it, yes.
understood you right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's very, very interesting. And yeah, I agree with it. Everybody who suggested that Rosa and Darlene need to go on the road with this program, because there's so much we don't know that has come out. And this has touched people so deeply, the pilgrimage. It's somehow loosening people up and enabling them to see what they didn't see before.
That's true.
It's not just the tragedy of the lynching. It's also a forward kind of thing. So I'm going to try to stop talking and ask more questions. Here's Lane Stone. She says, I am from Atlanta. So he was a part of my, meaning Martin Luther King, he was part of my growing up, along with his father and later his widow. She says, I agree with what you said. Thanks for saying that, Rosa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lane Stone is is very prominent in AAUW, but she also does slides beautifully. She pushed the slides forward. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions unless I'm missing something here. We have a little more time in case somebody wants to ask something. But you've gotten rave reviews in the chat. Lots of people said thank you and you did a great job and you're wonderful teachers and you're really informing us. So I'm just pulling all those little short comments together. And so would anybody like to say anything more of our speakers and our wonderful featured guests?
I would like to encourage every single one of you to download our newsletter, sign up for it, so it comes right to your box. And also just come join us at our next meeting and join a committee and get involved with us.
Yes.
I think we just had a question pop up. I don't know if I was seeing that, but
Oh, yes, it just popped up. You saw it also. Where'd it go? It was about the documentary. How did you saw that, Darlie?
I
It was
think I
for
just
you. It was for you, and it's where'd it go?
I don't see it anymore.
It was about how did you feel about the documentary?
Oh, how did I feel about the document?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
The documentary was mainly more of a reflection, and like we kind of just talked about how we felt on the trip. What did we plan to do, you know, for the future? Yeah, here's the question right here. How'd you feel about reflecting while filming the documentary? When they were asking us questions, you know, I had my fellow classmates with me and we just kind of talked about how we felt and what we're going to do moving forward. And seeing myself, like watching the documentary, like for the first time, it was crazy because, you know, the emotions that I felt there, I still feel it now. Like it's still there. And it's like reliving the trip over and over again. Like I wouldn't want anything else in the world except for going on that trip again, because we've grown together as, you know, not just classmates, but like we're like family. And, you know, going through the same experiences, although we felt differently about it, that's what brought us together. And even answering the questions during the documentary, we kind of just wanted to make sure that, you know, what we learned is, you know, without a doubt, something that we needed to learn a long time ago. And now that we've gained this information, it's time that we continue that research, and not only continue that research, but to pass it on. And I want to keep reiterating that, because passing on the information is like, what's a good analogy for that? Like just, you know, giving someone a good book. It's amazing seeing how someone else can see something and interact with it differently, but in a positive way. But yeah.
Thank you for that. You seem to be saying that you really saw something that you never saw before. And once you've discovered it, you want to share it. That's a beautiful thought.
That sums it up.
I would just like to throw in there too, that the whole school side of this would not have happened without Mr. Shabazz and Miss Jones, and also our former superintendent of schools, Dr. Hutchings. And he committed early on and even resigned after that commitment, but he made sure that we got to go on this trip together, this journey together, because he knew how important it was and that it fit the 2025 strategic goals for ACPS on equity.
Oh, yeah. So he really deserves credit. Now we've got a really nice comment here from Edkeisha Anderson. Great presentation, everybody. I'm from a small town not far from Selma and Montgomery, and it warms my heart to see the impact our museums are having on our youth. We have to keep sharing the knowledge in order to change the future.
Amen.
Yes.
That's right.
And I'm just wondering if you all visited the museums that are located in Selma. There are some small civil rights museums there, I believe. In addition to-
We didn't go to, we spoke with Joanne Bland. She shared this, she and her sister shared their stories with us. We were there on a Sunday, so the visitors center and museums were closed.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes. So I think Ed Keisha is referring to the big museum then in Montgomery.
There were multiple museums in Montgomery that we went to all of them. And there was the Civil Rights Memorial Museum. There was the Freedom Riders Museum. There was the Rosa Parks Museum. And I'm forgetting one. I think it was the one that was at the university.
College.
And then there was the Mothers of Gynecology as well that we visited.
Oh, that's a lot of museums. Yeah, that's a lot of history. Wow, that's really impressive. Well, if there seem to be no more questions. Anybody else? Anybody see anything more here? So I love how people are popping up who are from the South and are commenting there. So would any of the three of you like to make a closing comment?
I guess I'll go ahead and start. Again, thank you for having me and, and all the other guest speakers, Rose as well, and giving us this space to just share what we've experienced in this pilgrimage. And it's very easy to kind of just, share this information out. Like, I don't know I can't even count how many times I've shared this documentary with everyone that I knew. Because it's a really great documentary. Like Miss Jones was telling me how, first time she watched this, she was crying. And like, yeah, I was really sad. It was really sad, like, but the thing is, you learned a lot. You learn a lot from, just hearing what people have to say about their experiences. And, that could lead to taking that chance to gain an experience on your own. And so it's all about just sharing the information. That's one thing that I will continue reiterating, just sharing the information. But thank you all for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution. Rosa, did you have any final words?
I'd just like to say, I'm praying that Daryl is your name, that you'll be multiplied with the 45 students that went with us on that trip becomes 90 students, and not only at our high school. I just think it's worthwhile for us maybe to talk to outside group. I would hug you if I were in the room with you.
There's a shout out Ra Alim Shabazz. Great job, Darlie. I'm so proud of you, and you're willing to share your reflections on this powerful experience. So that's in addition to Miss Rosa's statement.
And it was backed up by Miss Jones, and I want to add my name to that list too. Thank you so much, Darlie.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Virtual hugs allowed. Diane Schreier. So Tiffany, any last word you want to share with us?
Come join us.
Yes.
Join us on our journey.
Well, when is your next journey?
Well, no, I meant the journey, the whole journey, not the pilgrimage. There's no plans right now.
4 p.m. March 4.
4 p.m. March 4th is the next opportunity.
Yeah, transformational justice at the Lee Center. Hear all about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, we're gonna draw this to a close. And this has been so enjoyable. Thank you so much for participating and for these wonderful talks and everything that you shared about the pilgrimage. It was just so enlightening. And thank you to all those participants who listened and asked questions. This has been a wonderful meeting. Thank you. Diane, do you want to say anything? Do you want to say goodbye?
Yes, I do. This has been a wonderful meeting. You two have given an outstanding talk. I love the videos. The video was wonderful. This issue impacts every part of our lives. It is part of our lives, and while we're strictly nonpartisan, the fight has to continue.
Yes.
Fight must continue. And thank you very much for coming, and thank you to our audience for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Hello.
So,
Hey, how are you? I'm doing good. doing good.
Diane, I'm just gonna,
I know, I was on a Zoom.
Yeah.
So I
so
can
I'm
get
just
up.
gonna, I need to hit something beyond leave though, in order to end it.
I'm ending it now.
No, no.